You're listening to a TGM production.
It's not a normal world, it's Taskmaster World. And yes, welcome back to Taskmaster World, the podcast. Now, if you saw my interview with Jackie Van Bee, you will know at the very beginning I mentioned I'll be talking about episode 1 of series 6 of Taskmaster New Zealand at some point in the future. Now, here we are. This is the future. It is the future. No matter who you ask, no matter what day it is still the future. Either side of the world is still the future. I might be in the past right now, and someone else might be in the future. We've done that joke, so we're not going to go there, but someone's in the future. Now, as I mentioned, the future, we will crack on going out in the future. My guest today is best known as the host of Celebrity Treasure Island. It's one and only Bree Tomasel.
Hello, call me Marty McFly because I'm in the future.
And so, Julie Andrews once said, to start at the very beginning, it's a good place to start. And I've not yet argued with her once. I've not met her, so I can't really argue with her. But her philosophy isn't wrong yet. How did you get into the world we call radio?
Oh, geez, Tom. I mean, how long is a piece of string? It was, to be honest, a lot of cleaning toilets, a lot of doing any job that I could at the radio station that I worked at. So I didn't have to go and get a real person's job. I was a street teamer is what we call it. I don't know if you guys have those over in the UK, but a street teamer where essentially you're hired to drive the radio cars around and you give out free drinks and, you know, create a vibe at events. And I got a job doing that, and I knew as soon as I got to the radio station, I was like, I'm going to do everything that I can to never leave this world of radio because I'm a big radio nerd, and I've done every job in radio that you can think of, and I just never left. I wouldn't take no for an answer, and eventually they let me on air, and that the rest is history, Tom.
And radio, I think that what you can take from radio and podcasts and all the audio platform now, that without radio you wouldn't be where we are now with TV, because you wouldn't have the entertainment world, and I think it just enhances. Why do you think that you fell in love with the format of traditional radio?
I think the thing for me about radio is I love the immediacy. I love, you know, how it is instant. Like you're connecting with people as you're talking, like people are listening, and you can ask people to interact with something that you're talking about and they can call in and interact instantly, which I think there's no other medium really that's like that. Podcasting is obviously very similar to radio, but it's not that instant connection where you know people are listening as you're talking. And I think for me, it was that, instant connection with people that really drew me into that format.
Yeah, and I think that with radio, a lot of, if you use regular music-based radio where there's music involved, you get the connection that you feel like you know the host. So in the UK, there's a radio DJ called Chris Evans, and he is when he moves to another station, he takes the audience with him. And you can tell that it's the same crowd that have loved him for so many years. And Ken Bruce is another example, but that's because people love the formats he creates. But the point is that you can tell that they love the person. Do you think that that's why a radio audience is a lot more loyal than you would say an audience for like a breakfast TV program?
I think, if you're doing your job right, I think you're spot on, Tom. I think, you bring the audience into your world, and it's like you have a bunch of friends listening in on your conversation. And I think you did right where radio hosts and beloved radio hosts can, if they move stations, the audience will move with them, because it's like, if your friend is moving somewhere, it's not like you're just going to stop being friends with them. Like, if you like that person and you enjoy, what they're about, you want to keep listening. So I think, yeah, it's a interesting thing that has been around for a long time, where truly great radio hosts have that really amazing connection with their audience.
Yeah, and I think that with having that connection means that you can experiment. So there's a radio host called Ken Bruce, and he experimented with a format called Taskmaster that was his quiz show that somehow, and it's probably technical, but he bought the rights to the format, so it's his. So when he moved, he could use the format, and he created a TV show and ball games. And I think that it shows that the audience wanted that. And do you think that that's a good reason why it's good to have that connection with the audience? Because they don't care what you do; they love you for you, and you can try out these formats. Do you think that's why that's a good thing?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, it takes time to build that connection with your audience. And I think once you have built that genuine connection and you've done the work, you then are able to work in a space where you can experiment with different content and different things, because the audience already trusts you. Once the audience trusts you and knows who you are, then you can branch out and do different things, because you've got that base there where they know you as a person. So I think you did right.
Yeah. And one of the other things you've done, or are still doing, we'll come to that in a minute, which is incredible because it's garnered, well, beforehand, and then when you took over, it's a juggernaut in itself, and it's had international adaptation that might have not gone well because they don't always work out well. But what's it like hosting Celebrity Treasure Island?
It's amazing. I never thought I would do TV, Tom. It's not something that I ever had dreamt of. And I don't know why that is. I don't really know why that is, and I think I got lucky. I did a pity audition when the show got rebooted back in 2019, it was. And I just had a great connection with the other host, Matt Chisholm, who had hosted New Zealand Survivor. He'd hosted 3 seasons of that. And him and I had a great connection instantly. He was a country boy, I was a country girl. And I think I got lucky in the audition where we just kind of clicked. And that's been really amazing for me. Like, that was my introduction into the world of TV. I kind of got thrown into the mix of it. It was a pretty quick lesson on how TV works. It's a very different world, but it's quite a challenge for me, and I really love and enjoy doing it because it is quite different from radio. But yeah, I've done 6 seasons now, and it's been the best experience ever.
And do you think that the reason why it became the juggernaut is it because the audience that are into programs like Survivor can sort of easily transition because it's not the exact same, but it's like similar in a sense of, if you watch Survivor, you'll understand that you'll enjoy this as well because it's in that sort of same ballpark. Do you think that's why it became popular, because there was already an audience for a similar type of show?
Yeah, I think, fun fact for you, Julie Christie, who is reality TV royalty in New Zealand, she's come up with so many different reality TV ideas here in New Zealand. And she came up with the concept of Celebrity Treasure Island, or Treasure Island, I think, as it originally was before they went to the celebrity version back in the late 90s. And I believe that Treasure Island, the concept of it, and Survivor, I believe, came about in the same year. And I think you're spot on. Survivor is such a beloved format and one of my all-time favorites. And so even when I was auditioning for this show, I'd never heard of it because I didn't live in New Zealand in the late 90s. I was in Australia. But when someone goes, oh, it's like Survivor, I was in and hooked straight away, you know? So I think you did right. People are like, I understand the concept. The format is such an amazing one that works. And you get these real and raw moments of people where they're put into a situation where they're living with people from different walks of life that they probably never would normally interact with. And you get these real and raw moments where people are pushed to their limits. And I think that's what makes it great, which is just like Survivor.
Yeah, and I think that from my point of view, what makes it really incredible is the fact that you know you've got a hit, you know you've got a good program if there's international versions. If other countries have gone, we want to do that, unless you Destination X, where the people that are selling it have had to massage the viewer figures and go, oh, we've got more viewers than we actually have to try and sell the format because no one else wants to buy it. That's the only exception. But I think it shows that it works really well. It's like the only with Survivor, it's never really worked in the UK. It's had 2 failed attempts.
Okay.
Bearing in mind, we're into Big Brother, so it's a very questionable country. And I think why do you think that having a hit format is so important for the success of a TV show?
Well, I think you hit the nail on the head when you said it before. Like when there's a format that is super well known, you already have that leg up and that advantage where people go, "Oh, I know what that is," or "I've heard of that," or "I've seen that." So you automatically have that draw card where people might jump on board because of the name. It's like Taskmaster, you know. It's got such an amazing name, and then when, you know, the kind of other series in the other countries started doing it, you already have that audience base of people who love the show. So I think you're dead right where it gives you that automatic leg up.
And there was a program on recently. I don't know if it's aired in New Zealand because it's only recently finished in the UK. The UK program that's based on a Belgium thing called Destination X, and they described it as the Traitors meets Race Across the World. So they described it as 2 different shows that it was nothing like. So Race Across the World, you were running around the world, and it's like Amazing Race.
Amazing Race, yeah.
It's just real people, sometimes celebrities, but they're going to different checkpoints, and they're basically getting on trains and buses,
Right.
to the checkpoint, and then they're getting up the next day and doing the same thing again. Nothing else really happens, but the Destination X is they're on a bus and they can't see the location. They have to guess where they are, and they have no idea where they've been or where they are. They know they're in Europe, which is difficult, but it proves the point that people went to watch it because of these other shows, and I think that sometimes that works, but it garnered a large audience. And so it leads me on perfectly to another hit format that's done so well. It's garnered multiple spin-offs such as junior versions and Christmas specials. Had you been a fan of the original British Taskmaster before you found out about the New Zealand version and went on to it?
Yeah, it's a great question. I've been a die-hard fan of Taskmaster UK. I've watched it for many years and many seasons. And when I tell you, Tom, when they announced that they were bringing out a New Zealand version, I'm getting goosebumps now thinking about it because I was so excited because I love New Zealand. The New Zealand comedy scene is such an amazing one. And when they announced that they were bringing out the New Zealand version of Taskmaster, I knew it was going to be great. And when I heard that the company that was making it, which is Kevin and Co., I love everything that this company makes, and they do such an incredible job. And so I was very excited, and I must say I have not been disappointed. New Zealand Taskmaster is one of my favourites for sure.
And I think that what makes it interesting from a UK standpoint is that when all these other versions come out, you can tell which version has been more successful to a UK audience. And so like, for example, with the New Zealand version, you now see a lot more British people being massive fans of New Zealand comedy, and you see a lot more of that now than you would have, which is interesting. Do you think that that's a positive thing of having this version being so well beloved?
I think it's the best thing ever, Tom. Like a lot of the comedians on that have been on previous seasons of New Zealand Taskmaster are mates of mine, are friends of mine. And so over the years and over the seasons, I've watched these comedians who a great example is David Correos. I asked him, we interviewed him, I think it was at the start of this year. It was about something that he was doing. And I said, have you seen a shift in your success and the amount of audience that you get coming to your shows, like before doing Taskmaster to now after doing Taskmaster? And he said to me, it was quite interesting. He said, I feel like I didn't really have a career in comedy and I didn't really know what true success was until after Taskmaster, where now I'm a true professional comedian and it's given me that audience and that platform where I can now truly do this full time. And I thought, isn't that amazing and so cool that a show has done that? And, you know, there's so many New Zealand comedians now that go to Edinburgh and they go to these other comedy festivals and they sell out shows because of the success they've had on New Zealand Taskmaster. I think it's the best thing ever.
Yeah, and you see that a lot in the UK version. So the new series has just come out in the UK, Series 20, and already before the show had come out, the two stars of it, Phil Ellis and Anya Magnanoli, had already sold out their upcoming tours, and they'd already appeared on the beloved Sunday Brunch, where you get fed for 3 hours and then you feel sick afterwards. Because you realise you shouldn't have organised a Sunday roast afterwards. And it's one of those things that you see the audience going, and Richard Herring, who's won Champions of Champions as well as winning his series, he's the only person that I can tell, because he keeps on mentioning it, that he hasn't had an audience growth. He hasn't had the sellouts as he would have to his podcast recordings. He keeps on talking about it, so no wonder people aren't even selling out, because he keeps on telling people that he's got the head and he's got the body of Greg in his house, but he's not had an audience. He's got in his like basement area when he films his at home podcast. You could just see Greg's body in the background. The head's upstairs, the body's downstairs. It's like a kitchen area just with the body. It's really creepy.
That is so creepy. I mean, the head's creepy enough, but then I feel like the head's less creepy than just having the body sitting around. I don't know why, but that's funny.
And one of the other things you've worked on is it seemed as some people would say it's a comfort program. Some people would say it's adorable. Some people say it's just really weird, especially when you're watching it with a dog. What was it like appearing on an episode of the Doghouse New Zealand?
Oh, God, the Doghouse UK is actually where I fell in love with that show. I mean, it's such a wholesome, tear-jerking format. And when they announced that, it was so weird because they announced that they were doing the New Zealand version, and I literally had been looking to adopt a dog at the time. And I was like, oh, this kind of is just all the stars have a kind of aligned. And it was bizarre. Like, it's quite full on because, you know, it's kind of like dating, but you're meeting a dog for like 5 minutes and then making this huge decision because, you know, adopting a dog is a big decision and you want it to be right for your family and your situation. So you kind of like, it's a 5-minute speed date with the dog and then you have to make a decision about whether you're going to take it home. But it was amazing. And we now have our dog, Meryl Streep, that we got from the Doghouse New Zealand. And she's the best dog ever. So we love her.
And the things that never make sense to me when I watch it, but probably make sense to the people that are actually in it, is that when you have the dog and they've named it like Henry or whatever, it's called Henry, and then they get home and it's like 3 months later, it's now called Bruno. The bit that I never understand is how does the dog now know its new name when it's been called its other name for so long? That's the only bit of the whole of the process that confuses me.
That would be quite confusing for the dog, and I'm sure maybe the dog answers to both names. Who knows? But yeah, a lot of people change the names. I feel like um, it's an interesting one, depending on how old the dog is. Like if you're adopting a dog that's 8, I mean, there is no chance of renaming that dog. Like that dog's name is what it is. And can you imagine trying to retrain a dog that's been called a certain name for 8 years? It wouldn't work.
And the other thing I was watching, because it's on sometimes the UK version on just before the UK version of Taskmaster, so you sort of see the back end of it. And there was one where I saw this dog, and it's either scared of the people or scared of the camera, but it just kept just tried to wee on this woman's dress. And she was like, no, don't do that. And everyone else isn't trying to intervene and go, they're all just watching on the screen going, he's going to wee on her. And
it's crazy. I ended up doing a similar thing where I got scared and tried to wee on the cameraman as well.
One of the things you've worked on that I can't think of a UK equivalent, because there probably isn't, because it turns out it's a large country and you can make 9 series out of travelogue of going up and down the country. But what's it like appearing on the recently re-shown in the UK? What was it like working on 3 episodes of the brilliant Shortland Street?
Oh, Shortland Street. Honestly, when I got asked to appear on that show, I had to reread the email and then reread it again. And I thought it was a scam. And I was like, what is going on? And I asked my agent, I was like, is this legit? Like, what's happening? I couldn't believe it, to be honest, Tom, to be asked to appear on Shortland Street. It was everything I thought it was going to be and more. It's such an interesting show, the way they film it, where everything is filmed in real time. So the set is so cool in how there's so many cameras in there, and they literally, as you are watching on TV, it's just filmed as you see it. And if someone makes a mistake, they have to go back and film the whole thing, like the whole scene again. And it's quite interesting how they do it. But it was honestly like bucket list for me, like being on that show. It's such an icon of New Zealand and obviously beloved in the UK as well. So it was very special to be asked.
Yeah, and it's one of those shows that it's unlike Neighbours and Home and Away and all the other of that ilk. Shortland Street's the only one that's ever, no one in the UK has ever, you've never been able to ask someone, have you watched the program from start to finish? So I know someone that watched every episode of Neighbours, and when Neighbours first came to an end, they gave up on it because they thought it was too ridiculous right at the very end. And then when it came back, they went back into it. But with Shortland Street, it was on the UK for a while. They left the UK. They came back in 2022 for like 4 months, and they left again, and now it's back again. And it's one of those where no one's been able to watch it consistently because it was on for a few years, then it was off for a few years, and it was on like 4 months because Amazon thought they wouldn't do it. Then it's been brought over back onto STV Play, so it's now available to watch as it airs in New Zealand. So you can now catch up with what's going on. And they did a special program where they had the one bloke that's still in it from years ago to explain what has happened to a woman that appeared in a soap that no longer happens anymore. To have a conversation about which soap was better, one that's still on and one that ended in 2003. So I think that we're trying to reinvest into the world of Shortland Street. And why do you think that Shortland Street is so special and is so beloved, not just to New Zealand audiences, but audiences where it's available?
Yeah, I think it's one of those shows that, is so iconic because it's been running for so long, one. And two, it's the storylines that people fall in love with, some crazy, far-fetched, but it's just one of those shows that connects with people, and it's I think connected for such a long time, and it's got such heritage, where you can't create that the heritage and the longevity of something like that, and it's earned its stripes in so many ways in the TV land, and I think that's what truly it comes down to.
Yeah, and I think that it also sets itself apart because when you watch that compared to the UK equivalent, which isn't really an equivalent, because Shortland Street's a soap opera and the other one's a continuing drama, if you compare it to the world of like Casualty, you can sort of tell that it's that Shortland Street has got the heart, where Casualty is all about, you know, in the first 4 seconds that bus that you're watching is going to crash into 3 other cars. There'll be 2 dead, 1 really injured, and they're going to have some sort of panic because they don't really want to talk to the mother. Because the mother's died in whatever, and it's ridiculous. But you can tell with Shortland Street, it's got the heart. Where
You
is
did right. You did right. Yeah. And I think, you know, what's been so amazing is the storylines that have been so far ahead of its time. Like they've had, you know, gay characters on that show. They've had trans characters. All this stuff that they've done on that show. And to be honest, they did it early as well, you know. And I think that's what truly also sets it ahead and apart from the rest.
Yeah, and I think that when you watch it, compared to when you're watching other soaps, especially in Britain, because we've got a certain way of making you feel like you're watching a soap, such as Phil Mitchell arguing a cockerel, or a cockerel walking across the screen. But you can tell that there's a lot of effort put into it, and you don't feel like you're watching a soap, if that makes sense. You feel like you're watching, like, let's say, a continuing drama. You're watching your average drama, but and that's what makes it stand out, I think, in the UK market. It stands out from your Emmerdale, your Coronation Streets, because there you can watch it and you know that it's a soap. But when you watch your Shortland Street, you're not too sure. And do you think that's why it's got the audience? Because it appeals not to just your soap fans, but it also appeals to your regular drama fans.
I think you're spot on. And to be honest, when I was there on set, I felt like I was in real life. So that, like, the set's amazing. Like when I was walking around like the halls of the hospital, I felt like I was at the hospital. So I think you did right. I think it kind of sits in that, you know, both camps. So you get the audience from one side and you pull in the audience from that other side. So I think you did right.
And one of the other shows you've worked on that is holding the mantle to that format of that type of show, because we no longer have our version. That I would technically say that they're similar formats. It's just the audience that like the this British program likes this one as well, because it's very similar. What's it like appearing on the brilliant, the funny 7 Days?
7 Days, another New Zealand icon, and the format that was obviously created here in this country and has just continued to fly. It was surreal, like being there, and Jeremy Corbett is one of the best to ever do it. The way he hosts that show, he is the true secret sauce in that format, in that show, and to watch him and be alongside him as he's doing his thing was truly special and eye-opening for me. So much fun too, that show, just to see really funny people off the cuff bantering. Obviously you get time to write jokes beforehand, but you can tell when you're there, and I think you can tell when you're watching it, that a lot of that show is riffing and is on the spot, you know, and that's what I think makes it great, is how quick people are on that show, and that's what makes it really funny.
And I think from a viewer's point of view, when you see the British comedians go on it because they're touring in New Zealand or whatever they're doing over there, you can tell that, because the ones that I've seen go on it are of the generation that grew up or were just on the cusp of Mock the Week, which is a very, very similar form. You could tell that you feel like they're at home because they know how to make it still linked to what they would have done if they made onto Mock the Week. But it feels very much like they don't feel out of place. And do you think that that's why that type of format where there's where it is feels more right. Do you think that's why it works when you have your international comedians on the show?
Absolutely. And obviously, there's such great formats from around the world. Like 8 out of 10 cats is something that's coming to mind. These formats where you put really funny people together and you just watch the chaos unfold. And I think it's an easy format that works when you have really funny, quick-witted people.
Yeah. And one of the other things you've worked on that I would say is brilliant, and it surprises me that it hasn't tried to do a UK version, but when trying to argue that there should be a UK version, many people say, oh, there's all these shows that probably fill the gap that one hasn't. But what was it like appearing on Have You Been Paying Attention New Zealand?
Another one where I was like, I can't believe I'm here. This is amazing. And it was so well done. And it's such a sad thing that show isn't on the air at the moment, because it was so well done. I thought the New Zealand version was fantastic. Obviously, I grew up watching the Aussie version. It was one of my favorite shows, like growing up. And it's such a fantastic format. It's one of my favorites, I think. It's at the tippity top for me, like in terms of that kind of comedy format. It is truly just a load of fun, and Hayley Sproul is such an amazing host, and obviously you would know her from appearing on New Zealand Taskmaster last season. She's fantastic and so quick and the perfect host for Have You Been Paying Attention, and I hope, Tom, that they bring it back one day.
And there's a really interesting, as I've mentioned several times, I really love the idea of international version. That's why Taskmaster World exists. But there's a really interesting clip from the Australian version of Have You Been Paying Attention, where the question is trying to work out what program this clip is, and I think it's Turkish, but it's like the Turkish version of Have You Been Paying Attention. What's interesting is that when you watch the Australian and the New Zealand version, they're really bright and vibrant. When you watch that clip of the Turkish version, it looked like they had a power cut. There wasn't much light. And do you think that because the show in New Zealand and Australia were very similar, and there's now since then been massive crossovers with the community? Do you think that's why the show was a success in New Zealand, because there was a quick crossover, and because it was in a similar vein to its original counterpart?
Yeah, I think as the saying goes, Tom, if it ain't broke, don't fix it, and New Zealand and Australia, I'm sure the Kiwis will hate me saying this, and the Aussies probably won't care that much, but they'll be like, I don't know. But in my opinion, there's a lot of similarities between Australia and New Zealand. I think our humour is very similar, and so if something's going to work in Australia, like generally, it'll probably work in New Zealand. And obviously, we saw that with that format and that show.
We move on. We're here at Taskmaster New Zealand Series 6, Episode 1. Now, the prize task was to bring the thing that gives the most street cred. Now, we've already touched upon this briefly, and so I'll mention it first. When you found out that Jack decided to try and get himself onto Shortland Street, and he had then had his dreams crushed that everyone had been on Shortland Street, what was your first thought when you first saw that was what he tried to impress everyone with?
My first thought was, oh no. I was like, oh no, not a good start. But aren't they the best moments of Taskmaster when you seem to bomb the hardest? It ends up being, the best moments of the episode. And that's what I love about this show. And I think Jack did such a perfect job of digging himself a bigger and bigger hole when that happened.
And do you think that Well, why do you think that it was so easy for him to even get access to be able to appear? And do you think it's because of it's small, it's not as big of an industry as you would get like Hollywood shows in? Do you reckon that's why it was so easy for him to even attempt this in the first place?
I think in New Zealand, Shortland Street is on the same network that Taskmaster is on, and I think he would have potentially pulled some strings where he was like, "Hey, if you let me do this, you'll get some promo and some airtime on Taskmaster to promote Shortland Street." And I think that definitely would have helped, and also every second person in New Zealand has been a background actor on Shortland Street. So it's one of those things where, yeah, I think it's not that uncommon. And obviously, I don't know if he thought about that, but it all came out in the episode, and he found out eventually.
And I think that if somebody in the UK attempted that to try and worm the way onto such a show, it would depend on the lineup, but it would be pretty easy to get away with it because there isn't a particular show that everyone on planet Earth has been on, because those shows no longer exist where a high selection of people. So like Sheridan Smith appeared on Doctors, and that no longer exists. So you've got a lot of those shows that if someone attempted that, well, they no longer exist, so it's like hard to even be fumbled. So I think that if someone tried that in the UK, that would work. But you decided to bring in personalized number plates. Now, what was before you had heard of before you thought of what you were going to take? What was your initial thoughts when you first read in the email or in whichever form you were given it that this was a prize task?
Yeah, the prize tasks are an interesting one. You get sent them all at once in an email, and your brain looks at all of them, and sometimes you have an idea instantly, and other times it's really difficult, and you're like, I don't feel like I have anything for that. I think my first initial thought was I was going to bring in my massive Pokemon card collection from when I was 12. But I was too scared of getting my mum to courier that over from Australia. So I didn't want to, risk losing that collection. And then I honestly thought they are my real personalized number plates. And I drive on the street, and I feel like it gives me street cred because I'm on the street. But obviously, it didn't appeal to Jeremy Wells, the Taskmaster. I still think that I deserve more points for that, but it is what it is.
And I think it's a common trend that people do where they hand in what they think is the best thing for it and forget that it's their personal possession. And if they lose it, then depending on what the person does with the prizes afterwards, there's a high chance. So it's like Romy Strong and Nathan, and I still don't remember his name, but they spoke in Denmark, and both giving out their wedding rings. And now that's the issue they've got, is that now they've got to try and win. And do you think that for you did that help you to go, right, I really want to win this now, or did that not change your mindset at all?
Look, I'm not going to lie. Because I drove my car to set that day, and the art department, literally minutes before the episode, took my number plates off the car, and I had to beg for those number plates back at the end of the episode because obviously I didn't win. And I was lucky enough that eventually I was able to drive home with both my number plates, so they were given back to me.
And Alice decided to go back to Route 1. What is street cred? I wouldn't know. It might be if you get some credit on your debit card, or you get a credit card off a bloke on the street. That could be street cred because you get on the street. Bad joke.
No, I love it. I love it. That's Taskmaster at the core, isn't it?
Yeah, triple jokes. But she decided to bring a list of people who do drugs and are successful, and then regretted the list immediately because the list was slightly out of date. Elon Musk. But what what was your thoughts when you heard her read that out? Did you think that like fit perfectly with the show, or did you think that you got a chance of winning some more points here?
I thought that was brilliant from Alice, but Alice is brilliant. Let's be honest. I thought that I really liked that one from her, and I hadn't seen that list, even though I've lived in New Zealand for a long time, but I had never seen that list. But I know that website well, stuff.co.nz. So I thought that was great. I thought she hit the nail on the head. I thought she deserved more points.
And I think that one of the if I was going to do it, I would bring in an image. I would bring in a Google link to the website watchpaintdry.com, where you watch paint dry. Literally, it's a live stream of paint drying, or its sister website, Watch Grass Being Mowed, where it's just a bloke mowing grass, live streamed from America. Obviously, American, and they're just going up and down mowing grass. That would give you enough street cred.
I like that. I like that.
I had paint people. Jackie Van Beek decided to do the worst thing ever, to a list from Google of what gives you street cred. I can't even say the word anymore. That is not being in a gang, and she ends up giving out her reading glasses. Now that shows her age, because a lot of people need reading glasses at some point in their life. Craig Davis is a good example. 20 series later, he's now wearing glasses. But do you think that having this as a prize, do you think that this was a harder prize test than the others because it's such a broad term? There isn't a direct link that you can sort of spin out to be a good joke.
Yeah, I think you did right when you say there's some prize tasks that are really hard and some that are easier. And I think you're right when you say, like, when it's quite open-ended, it gives you too much option, and it can be hard to kind of channel that into one kind of area. So I think Jackie Van Beek is hilarious. And when I say she'd never really watched the show before, so on the first episode, like as we were filming like this live episode, she was like, "So what happens now?" Like, it was hilarious to watch her figure out as we were filming how it kind of went. And so I think that kind of showed in some of her prize tasks where she'd never really watched it. So she was kind of like, I don't really know what to bring here. So she just literally bought in what she thought. And that was, my favorite thing about her, like watching her kind of watch the show for the first time as she's appearing in it.
And she said when I interviewed, she said that she thought she had to bring it had to be physical with her. She didn't know it could be videos and photos.
Yes.
And the thing that you can correlate with that is that it's not too dissimilar, because in the early stage, I'm not too sure if they still do it, but in the early stages of the Norwegian version, they had all the prizes under their chairs, and they had to like get it off like a magician. They had like a piece of cloth. They went, "That's my prize. It's a gun."
Right.
Woo! And so it's like, it makes sense why you would think that you would have to bring it in physically with you instead of having it in the white void, as I now call it. And it makes it more interesting having them on video, because it means you can demonstrate it. So in the recent series in the UK, you had Reece Shearsmith, who's like really well known in the comedy world of like horror comedy, if you will. He created this crow. He like made a crow that also, like, when you press a button, it picks out fortunes. So there's like a box of fortunes, and it press a button, the beak goes in and picks up your
That's
fortune.
awesome. I love that.
And because there's a video element, you could show that, and it makes it more interesting. Do you think that that's why the prize tests are so creative? Because you don't have to have the item physically with you. You can create it so that it might not be exactly what it is when you pick it up, but for the use of the joke, this is what you would want it to act like.
Yeah, I love that element, and I think it just makes your options so much more vast. And so I love watching how people interpreted prize tasks, especially when you're doing it yourself, and watching like when you see what other people have brought in and how they've done it. That was one of my favorite things about filming the show is just watching how other people's brains work. And yeah, you're right. It's just so many things that you could do, and that's a really cool part of each episode, in my opinion.
And the Paxasani stole an item from the Taskmaster, and there was video footage which didn't look like CCTV. I think the aim of that camera probably is to make it more CCTV, but because it was weird that it was still on whilst no one was in the room, unless it was really staged and everyone was just behind the glass screens.
So, fun fact, I work at the company where that radio station, so Jeremy Wells and I work for the same company. So I know that radio station well. And so I loved that Prior Stars. I thought that was very funny, and very clever from Pax.
Yeah, and I think that those type of ones where you sort of reverse it back on themselves and you get the Taskmaster involved always work quite well, because Rod Gilbert hid Greg Davis's wardrobe. And I think and then stole some items, but I think that it works really well because it adds the element of the Taskmaster, the working on the show for that long, you sort of have a rough idea of what type of things you're gonna get, but having an element where you do it in real life, so you go to their place of work and steal something and they don't even notice it's gone. It shows how less pressure they are about it. I think it helps to enhance the look on the Taskmaster's face. And do you think that also helps the show because it proves that it's the Taskmaster really has no clue what's going on?
Yeah, I think it's that that power shift element where, we're kind of we're like puppets to the Taskmaster for this whole thing. And so when you change that power dynamic and it shifts, it's a really interesting juxtaposition. And I love those parts where you see Jeremy Wells when he's caught off guard because he's so in control of everything. So that I do love.
And so the point system was Paxasani got 5, Jackie Van Beek got 1, Jack got 3, you got 2, and Alice got 4. And I think that you could argue there is a chance of arguing, but you would end up in a fight. So I wouldn't recommend arguing with any Taskmaster, no matter who they are, because they've got more power. Because obviously he had a pep talk from Greg Davis in the first series, so he now knows how to be more vicious. And so we move on to the first task, and I'm going to take a big deep breath for this because it's a very long one, this, but it is, with one roll, bounce the ball off the walls as many times as possible before knocking over the toilet paper tower. You may not touch the ball in any manner once you have rolled it. Most times the ball hits the wall before it knocks over the tower wins. You have 18 minutes to prepare, then you have one official attempt. To signal your attempt, you have to say the phrase, "Let the good times roll." Before rolling your ball, your time starts. Now, my first thought was you would have to reread it again, then you'd lose time because you wouldn't know what's going on. When you first read that task, what was going through your initial thoughts?
Yeah, that was the very first task that I filmed, and it's so interesting because you arrive on set and they put you into this room and you get ready and you put your kit on, and then the next thing you know, someone comes to the room. This might be an hour later, and they walk you down this path and they say, "Just walk down there," and then next minute you're like, "Okay, I'm on camera now and it's happening." So they try and make it as real as possible, and it feels really real. And to be honest, with the tasks, I'd read them, nothing would go in. I'd read it again, nothing would go into my brain. I reckon I would read them like 4 times, and I would try and avoid saying your time starts now, because once you say that, it is real. Like the time starts. So I'd read it. I'd be like, I'm just going to read it again. And then which Paul would be quite nice because I think he knew I had ADHD. So he knew that I had to read it multiple times before anything went into my brain. So that was, reading that really complicated task with all those rules. That was the first task. I was like, oh my God, this is not going to go well for me. And as you could see play out in the episode, it didn't go well.
And because the camera's on immediately, does that help you to let your guard down? So it's like some people don't really go onto TV themselves. Do you think that that helps you bring your guard down because you've got no time to work out what persona you're going to give? You just have to quickly do what you're doing because you've got no time to prepare.
Yes, I think you're spot on. You're just in it, and they don't really warn you. They don't really like say, "Hey, we're going to come get you in 20 minutes, and you're going to walk down here, and the cameras." They don't tell you any of that. They just throw you in, and so it's the most real life TV situation that it could be.
And speaking of real life TV situations, we had Jack lose said ball and Paul finding it later. And I do think that that shows how real it is. And it shows that it's on the moment because once you lose something, you haven't got the time to find it. And it's interesting that he then stole an item and then never repaid it. But I'm assuming he must have repaid it and then just pretended he hadn't to join in.
No, he didn't. He didn't. He busted that water bottle up because I asked him when like we weren't filming during the live thing. I was like, "Did you ever buy that water?" He goes, "Nah, never bought another."
And
But that was brilliant. That was very funny, and I could see why they kicked off the series with that task.
and the way that because I know a lot of behind the scenes gossip, but when you film a task, you don't know as the editor or the creative whether or not that will fit in until someone does something. So I think in this series, from what I've seen, I think Jack must be the one that helps them decide. Oh, that's definitely going in because Jackson.
Yes, totally. Like when something happens, like that's a great example, like what happened with Jack, because you film, I think I think someone said, because we film all the tasks and then I think maybe 7 or 8 tasks don't make it. That's how they do it. And obviously, when things, special moments like that happen, they're like, oh, okay, that task obviously makes the cut. So, yeah, that's exactly how they do it.
And you had managed to get 4 bounces. Now, when you decided what you were going to do, how confident were you that it was going to work out?
Not confident at all. And to be honest, you don't see, but I tried about 3 or 4 other methods before I got to that one. And I think some of my other methods would have actually done a better job. But when you're in the task and your brain just kind of leaves you and it's like you're on your own on this one, and it's wild just how much when you're put into a situation like that, how your brain just doesn't think for itself. Like it's pretty crazy, and so you just kind of go with the flow and whatever happens happens.
And because this was the from what Paul said, whether or not that's true or not, because this was the first series that included the first outside Taskmaster house based
Yes.
task. Do you think that that added more pressure because you had to make sure you made this task memorable because you know that it's the first one that's ever been outside of the green grass of the Taskmaster?
Yeah, to be honest, I wasn't thinking about that at the time because it was my first day on Taskmaster, so I was just trying to survive. Literally just trying to survive and get through each task. But looking back on it now, yeah, definitely more pressure, but I wasn't thinking about that at the time. I had too much pressure on me already.
And I think that having the outside of the Taskmaster like walls, having it outside sort of enhances the way that you view the task. So when you watch it, you can sort of tell that there's more tension because there's probably members of the public or you probably sat there more questioning how on earth they managed to like the UK version managed to use Heathrow for a series.
Yeah.
No one and more people less interested in what's going on, more like how on earth have they got Heathrow? And you sort of get to the point where it's really fascinating. Do you think that it enhances the show having these outside tasks, whether at this like location that a lot of people might recognise or they might know the type of
Yeah.
establishment?
I think absolutely it enhances it. It means there's more things at um available to use for tasks. And we see that as this series rolls out, the different elements and different things that they can use. So I think it 100%, yeah, enhances it and keeps it interesting and fresh, because a lot of this stuff is being done for the first time. So I think it's a great addition.
And do you think that, without giving away who wins the whole show, but do you think that if there was ever, so there's a program in the UK and then there's an Australian version called Richard Osman's House of Games, and in Australia it's called Claire Hooper's House of Games, which is a brilliant name in an Australian accent, Hooper. More than Claire. It's where sometimes they have redemption weeks where it's like people that didn't score that well or didn't win an episode or lost the entire thing. Do you think that if there was a like second chance redemption or as the Danish call it, loser of losers, which is quite rude to the people, do you think you would return if there was a second chance type series?
If they asked me to, I would return in a heartbeat. And I would go into it thinking that I'm going to be way better and I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that. And then it would be more of the same unhinged chaos from me. I don't think it would change very much. I think you can prepare and think you're going to do this as much as, as you can. And then once you're there, I think it all just kind of falls by the wayside.
And so with this task, Alice got 8 bounces. Jackie and Pax both got no toilet rolls knocked over, which always makes it more hilarious because you can tell how much effort has gone into doing that and then no results. Do you think that disheartens them, or do you think that tries to thrive them to be better?
I think it does a bit of both, to be honest, Tom. Especially first task out of the gate, because I thought I had absolutely bombed in that task. And that's what's brilliant about Taskmaster is even if you think you bombed and did the worst, you never know, someone could have done way worse than you as well. So that's what makes, Taskmaster so brilliant.
Yeah. And so we move on to the second task. And there's a brilliant website, you probably know about this by now, but there's a website called taskmaster.info where this person has spent ages. So the whole website designed as a task. So the background of it is a folded task. So each element is in the different element of the task, and it details all the different versions. And if you go onto the episodes, like say for instance, you say Taskmaster New Zealand Series 1 Episode 1, you press on the prize task or the first task, and it gives you all the individual tasks that are very similar. So it's like detailed what similar concepts as like, that element's been used in Sweden, Norway, and
amazing that people
put and it details who scored what in that task. And
yeah, wow.
And so this is so it's relevant because this is on the list of similar film type tasks where you have to go away and produce something that either is really creepy or is really comical or is just disturbing. But the task was film an origin story for your favorite idiom. You have 40 minutes. Your time starts now. What was when you read that task and did you initially know an example of an idiom, or were you a little bit not too sure what it was?
Yeah, I did know what an idiom was, which is weird because a lot of the time I'd read the task and be like, I'd be like, Paul, what's that? But I did know what it was, and there was quite a few flying around in my head. And then in the end, I ended up kind of creating my own idiom and then filming an origin story for that. So I think it just shows that in Taskmaster, it's really like the creative route that you want to go is really kind of up to you, and you create, kind of your own journey. And I'm surprised they didn't pull me up more on the fact that it wasn't a super well-known idiom, but I mean, I got away with it in the end.
I think you got away with it because Pax Dasani had just done Flea Market, which wasn't. I think they were more keen on the fact that Flea Market really wasn't a an idiom at all. A flea market, in my opinion, is fleas buying the groceries at a market.
Yeah.
And flea market. And
Yeah.
do you think that these type of tasks where you have to go off and film something like, for instance, Angela Dravid in the first series filming her own holiday, and she made this really creative thing. Do you think that they're the most fun ones to do because you get to use your creative side? It's not just your initial goals, but you get to spend a few minutes creating something that, in the end, looks brilliant.
Yeah, they're so different to, the more physical tasks. Because you're right, you have to really use a different part of your brain. And to be honest, I loved them the most, and I also hated them the most, as I feel like there's so much pressure in that moment to come up with, something creative. And I think they're some of my most proudest moments on the show is where I did come up with something that I was like quite proud of creatively, because I think, yeah, like I said, it's definitely, in my opinion, they're the hardest but the most enjoyable tasks.
Yeah, and so it's them, and then the other ones like make this song or do something musical. They're always quite good as well because you end up having really catchy songs that you end up singing, even though the connotations of the song is probably like they're horrific and you shouldn't really be singing it.
Song about Libya, still in my head.
That's a good example. Uh, but there's those type of things, and I think that. Do you think that that's why it's such a good format for not just your comedian, but you're also your comedy actors and then your comedy adjacent people that have entered the world of comedy? Because Richie Osmond in the UK version wasn't a comedian, wasn't a comedy actor. He was a producer and the host of Pointless. So not really in the comedy, but he's comedy adjacent because he's worked in.
Yeah.
Do you think that that's why it works so well for those type of people?
Yeah, totally. And you see that in this series, I think, big time with Jackie Van Beek, who's not a stand-up comedian per se, but she has worked in the field of comedy and film comedy, where she's just brilliantly funny. And she really shone, I think, a lot of times in these creative tasks over the season.
Yeah, and they say, and when you get an audience, and they always say, "Oh, this only works because there's all these professional people," and so some people would say it's their career, but when you really ask them, some of them might have normal jobs. But after Taskmaster, they probably can just chuck in the normal jobs. But I think that I don't know, I hope he'll come to New Zealand eventually, but there's a trend coming up in the world where they do junior Taskmaster, where it's like kid, just generic kids doing Taskmaster. Rose
Yes.
McIntyre hosted the UK version, but that really worked as well because even though there weren't professionals in this world, the kids still had the same similar creative brains to a
Mhm.
comedian. And do you think that that's why Taskmaster is successful? Because even though you might see, let's say, a comedian doing it, you can also do it because you might also have the same disturbed mind as some comedians.
Yeah. And that's what's brilliant about the show is that you it's the interesting part I think comes down to watching how differently people's brains work. Yeah.
Yeah. And so the other people we had Alice do rocket science, which it worked,
Brilliant.
and what it shows is that because the Taskmaster house in New Zealand is quite big, it's bigger than some of the houses, you've got more room to do something like that. So the lab worked really well for that, and there was
Yes.
enough room. And then Jack filmed himself going on a walk and talking about what he was going to do. And he did different things in different areas because he went slow and steady wins the race. He could have recreated the tortoise and the hare, uh, or
Oh.
he could have just had a race with Paul.
Yeah.
Because Paul doesn't seem like that fast. I've interviewed him. He's a very nice person. He's got a giant fan that he said, "Oh, I'm just going to put away my only fan." Uh, but he doesn't seem like a really fast person. Um, tell it in his music, he's quite slow and melodic, very nice. but it's not fast. So it doesn't show that he's a fast runner. So he could have done
Oh.
that. And then Jackie hit the sack was hers, and obviously we had Pax that did the most confusing one of all, flea market, and it shows that AI doesn't always work. And do you think that when you watch the others, do you think that you knew that you did a better job than, let's say, Pax Asani, shall we say?
Oh, you never know with these things. You really just never know how they're going to go or how the Taskmaster is going to interpret it or score it, really. Was I happy? Because Paul always asks at the end, you happy with that? And I'd have to say I was happy with this task that I did. I thought that had done a pretty good job. Um, and I think, yeah, it comes down to, how other people interpret it and what they think or feel, that is open to, yeah, people's opinions, I guess. But I was happy. I was happy with the result that I had.
And when you're when you hear Paul do that sort of like not really say what the task is, but sort of give clues of what it is, do you remember at that moment when he says these things? Do you because it's been months since you've filmed it? Do you remember what you did, or is it like a Jackie Van Beek situation where when you watch it on the screen, you then and then you still think you've done really well, or are you the type of person that remembers what you've done and then has flashbacks whilst you're watching? You read yourself read out the task.
I think it's a bit of both. I think there's some that, are ingrained in your mind and you're like, I remember exactly what I did and I'm dreading it. I don't want to see it. And then other times you're like, oh, I can't remember exactly what I did, but you kind of do. So I think it's a bit of both.
Yeah. And so on task number 3, another long one, get this balloon through the hole into the jar. You may not touch the balloon in any way other than popping it with the pin. You may not touch the string or the tissue in any way other than cutting the tissue with the scissors. You may not touch the whole wall in any way. Fastest wins. Your time starts now. When you saw that, did you know some science, or were you the type of person that went, I'm just gonna just do it without thinking, oh, there's some science here?
Yeah, that task was for me. I don't know about the others, but that was filmed last at the end of a very long day where I'd probably filmed 8 tasks. So my brain was cooked by that stage. And I think, to be honest, I was like, I just want to get this done as quick as I can. And it didn't turn out how I wanted it to. So I didn't put, maybe if it was filmed earlier in the day, I probably would have thought about it a little bit more. But there's certain times I think where you're so tired and you're so exhausted where you're like, I'm just going to give this a crack and see what happens.
And it's one of those where when you're watching as a viewer, unless you know science, you're not gonna know how you would do it, because I wouldn't have ever thought it's just because of how not clever I am in the science department. I wouldn't have thought that if you got tissue wet with a helium balloon, it would make it really heavy either. So
Yeah,
having that happen, it was news to me as well. And
yeah, disaster.
how was it a surprise to you when that occurred, or do you think that you had an inkling that might happen?
Oh, to be honest, Tom, I didn't know what I was thinking. I was like, sometimes I was just like a duck on the top of water, and my legs are just like flapping as hard as they can. And to be honest, was not thinking. I just literally was like, "Oh, this is gonna happen," and as you could see, I think from other people that were doing that task, none of us really thought about it all that much, apart from Jackie Van Beek, who did very well in that task.
Yeah, and Jackie Van Beek, she picked the mat up and placed it in the other side of the hole, popped the balloon, and popped it in the jar, which is a very sensible thing to do. And when you think about it, that hole in the wall was unnecessary.
Yeah.
You could have just been trying to get into the jar without using the hole, because I even forgot about the hole. After a few minutes, I forgot completely that the hole was part of the task. I just assumed they were still trying to get it into that jar. And
Yeah. Yeah.
that happens quite a lot when you're watching back the task, or when you're doing it, you realise, oh, they didn't really need to do that. You just made it more complicated.
I think they just sometimes they need some sort of other element where they want to push you even further. And so I think obviously that was a great example of that.
Yeah. And when we look at Jack cut it from the paper and popped it, and it ended up in the water, and then he
Pure luck, Tom.
look indeed, and then Alice just cut the tissue, and then it went up to the roof quite quickly. I didn't realise how tall the roof was either. You realise
Pretty
how
bloody tall.
yeah, and I didn't realise that with the helium it would go up that fast. I knew helium's quite fast, but I didn't realise when you're inside a room and people will have farted several times. I didn't think the air would be clean enough for it to go that fast. And so I was pleasantly surprised. Were you pleasantly surprised when you saw that, or did you have an inkling that the balloon was going to do that when you were watching her attempt it?
Yeah, I kind of knew how fast helium balloons rise, so I was trying to avoid that happening when I was doing that at all costs. Hence why I ended up the tissues in the water, which that's I think was the trade-off where it was either going to sink or it was going to fly, and mine sunk.
And so moving on to the live task, when looking at the live task, because you had seen the show before, were you more prepared to be able to, you need to think really quickly because you've got seconds. Do you think you were more prepared to have that shorter time span than you had when you were filming them?
You'd think so, but I did horribly in this time. I was so disappointed in myself because I played a lot of sport when I was a kid. I played a lot of hand-eye coordination stuff, and I was so disappointed with my efforts of throwing the fish into the barrel. And I'm still gutted about it. I'm not going to lie.
And so the live task in question was throw the fish into the barrel. Most fishes successfully thrown into the barrel wins. You have 30 seconds, minus the number of fishes you wish to throw. You may throw the same fish more than once. You must throw them from the spot and must not move from the spot or the barrel. Now,
Yes.
It seems very complicated. It was very complicated, and you all did it at once. So Alice had 15 fish in 15 seconds, but it's only got 2 fish. You had 15 fish in 15 seconds and got 2 fish. Jack had 5 fish in 25 seconds and then got 2 fish. And then Jackie Van Beek did 4 fish in 26 seconds and then she got no fish. And Pax Asani did 15 fish in 15 seconds and he got 3 fish. Do you think that it was more complicated because there was a lot of rules? Do you think that you had a harder time to work out what was the optimal thing to do?
I totally think that, which is what they're trying to do, obviously. And looking back on it now, and watching the task, which I mean, hindsight's a great thing, I probably would have picked 20 seconds and had 10 fish. Because if you don't have enough time to throw the amount of fish that you've got, then what's the point of having more fish, right? So I think that's probably what I would have done looking back on it now.
And so the episode winner was Alice Snedden. So we give her a round of applause. Well done to her. Now, when you first got asked to do Taskmaster, because you had seen the show, because you knew the format, what was your initial thoughts of what costume or what clothing choice were you going to do?
Yeah. I knew I wanted to wear some sort of costume or outfit because I know that it's very mixed. Some people just wear, kind of their plain clothes and an outfit that they like, and then other people wear like a full-on costume like Brindley Stent. And I was like, I definitely want to be like, this is a once in a lifetime thing. I want to go all out and wear something special and wear a costume. And to be honest, this is a nod which I'm wearing my TARS outfit at the moment. This is a nod to my one of my favorite movies of all time, which is A League of Their Own. And I designed this outfit, and it's got like logos. This one says Jeremy Wells is my daddy. This one says Brat. And yeah, I was stoked with my outfit. It's a custom made, one of a kind. So, I mean, you can't go wrong.
And I think that you can tell in a costume that the person loves the thing that it.
Yes.
But and I've been saying this for years now. Well, since the show came out, when Brinley decided to wear the like scout-esque costume, because I'm in the Scouts, I knew that necker was the best option because that's what they teach you in the Scouts, that if you've got a broken arm, use your necker because it will work as a sling.
Yeah.
You also teach that in the guides as well, because I recently realised that the guides wear the same necker system, which I don't know why I didn't think of that earlier. I probably wasn't thinking about it at all. But you can tell that those type of things work, and when we first saw your outfit, you can tell that you loved the concept where it came from, and obviously the film was a massive success. The TV series wasn't as big of a success, sadly, due to Amazon's lack of wanting to commission it for a second series. But the overall concept worked really well because it was practical, because of the heat.
Yeah.
It's the heat generally. It was practical. Do you think that you notice how heat-wise it was practical because New Zealand's weather is a lot more warmer than?
I definitely thought about that when I was like, okay, what do I want to wear? Like that was number one priority. I wanted to be comfortable and yeah, and not get too hot. I talked to Hayley Sproul, who she wore a jumpsuit on her season, and she said she's never been hotter in her whole life, and she just would sweat and sweat and sweat. And I was like, I don't want that, because I am naturally a sweaty, can be sweaty when I'm like doing physical stuff. So I was like, I want to avoid that at all costs.
And some outfits work and some don't. Now, one of the things you've done in your, I'm gonna use this phrase, and it's gonna be the worst phrase anyone ever heard, but your Taskmaster career, right? Which I'm gonna class as a separate thing for this thing. What was it like being a guest on an episode in series 3 of the New Zealand edition?
It was so cool. Kura messaged me last minute because I think she had something else that she wanted to do, which fell through. And so she messaged me at the last minute and asked if I could come in. And when she asked, I was like, yes, 100, like being such a big fan of the show. I jumped at the chance, and it was awesome. It was so cool, and it just made me want to be and do the show even more, like after that experience. And here we are now, where I'm lucky enough to have done that now.
Yeah, and it's one of those things that it's happened a lot in the different version where, and I think that's what fans really like, because you see someone. So if you, in your instance, you're now on the show, so then it's a reverse where they were excited that now they're going to watch you back and see you, and that, oh, brilliant. And it's like when Andrew Draven made a guest appearance inside
Yes.
it must have been a gorilla. I can't remember if it must have been a gorilla costume.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things. Do you think that that's what the fans really like when they see the alumni from the show reappearing?
Of course, yeah, people love that stuff. Ray O'Leary, I think, was also a doppelganger when I went in, and then he appeared, I think, either on the next series or the series after. So that's another example. Yeah, and I think people love that. The true fans, especially.
Yeah, and I think that Taskmaster is one of those things that has its wide variety of fans, and I think that having the spectrum means that people learn more about the comedy in different countries. Do you think that
Yeah.
helps the comedy industry? Because I know that beforehand, before Taskmaster became the what it is, there might have been barriers to people enjoying different forms of comedy from around the world. Do you think that it helped the comedy industry globally?
Absolutely, I think it does, because it makes people consume New Zealand comedy in a different way. It opens them up to actually consume it for a whole season and get to know people more. And so yeah, 100%. I think it's brilliant for that. You know, that's exactly what it does, and it's great for comedy around the world.
And I think that it opens up people's eyes to there's more than just their own comedy. So in the UK, in the United Kingdom, you've got different realms of comedy. You've got your British comedy, your Welsh, and your regular Welsh and Scottish comedy isn't that different because it
Yeah.
is more local. But you've got your Welsh Welsh language comedy and your Gaelic comedy that's different, and it shows to the world that there's other forms of comedy. So I wouldn't have fallen in love with Swedish comedy without the Swedish Taskmaster and Australia, New Zealand.
Yeah.
And one of those
Yeah.
things is where you learn more about these people. And do you think that it also helps other TV shows? So Paul Williams within the fantastic Kid Sister. Do you think that that helped because that was able to come over to the UK because you could tell
Course.
that there was some underlying love for New Zealand comedy? Do you think that's another positive of Taskmaster?
Such a big positive, you know, and I think, yeah, it just opens that space where people are like, oh, I love Paul and I love what he's about. And then, you know, they'll be like, hey, he's got this amazing other show. And then it just kind of, you know, feeds into everything. And I think that's what it's, yeah, brilliant for.
And so, as we come towards the end of this amazing, glorious, extraordinary, excellent interview, I'm not finished eating that dictionary.
Your words.
My words, no one else's. For people that are interested, because now that we've got to know more about you, from your own experience, what advice would you give someone that is thinking about getting into the world of broadcast radio?
I think my best advice would be the biggest thing that sets you apart from other people and makes you interesting is being you. And obviously you can draw inspiration from your favorite announcers or comedians or whatever world that is. But I think what it really comes down to is if you can be yourself, and as corny as that sounds, but you know, that's what makes you unique and special, and that's what will set you apart from the rest, and that's how you should be. Just be yourself.
And why do you think that broadcast radio, because of the birth of the popularity of podcasts where we are now, why do you think the broadcast radio is having such a boom where before it seemed like it was on its way out? Why do you think now is the golden age of broadcast radio?
I think it comes back to what I said right at the start, and we've come full circle, is that immediate connection, which there's no other platform or format that has that. And I think at the end of the day, us as people, we long for and look for that human connection, and that immediate connection you get with broadcast radio is, I think, what keeps it alive and what will continue to move along as streaming platforms come out, as podcasting, all these different things. That immediate connection you have with broadcast radio is what will keep it alive.
And I think that what works really well is that once you've listened to the show, you're having it on the podcast platform so that if you missed a moment, you can relive your favourite moment. So you can relive the interview with Channing Tatum. You can relive some of the most memorable moments. And do you think that sort of helps your audience not just grow, but to also fall in love with you lot and fall in love with the characters and how you've developed over the years?
Yeah, totally. And I think it opens it up to, you know, not just people that live in this country. You know, we've got people that listen to the podcast in the UK, we've got people in America, we've got, you know, people from everywhere, and you become like a little family. Like we have a Facebook group of just our podcast listeners where you know, it is a little family and we all like talk to each other and have that connection, and that's really cool and really special, and something that podcasting has added to radio over the years, I think.
Yeah, and I think that in the UK, especially because it seems to be that radio is outgrown TV comedies. There's more radio comedy than TV. Like every comedian, it was like just Monday gone. There was a BBC article about 20 odd comedians that were either brand new from the fringe that are winning awards, or all getting their own pilots and radio programs left, right, and centre. And
Yeah.
it shows that we're now in that boom without the growth of when I don't even know when, but when the moment when someone went, that's incredible. When podcasts became this massive thing, it
Yeah,
helped radio come back from where it was.
I
And
think so too.
yeah,
Yeah.
and do you think that because of radio is a lot cheaper than TV, do you think that that's why there is so much more being made into it? There's more scripted stuff. There's more panel shows. There's more of the what you would have got. Do you think it's because of it's less expensive? That's why more companies are taking risks.
Totally, totally. And also with radio, you can have an idea literally that morning and you can execute it that afternoon. Like it's that instant. And I think that's also appealing and something that, yeah, you get with radio that you don't get from TV or other mediums.
And you mentioned there about having that idea and doing it, and I think that from my own experience, because I used to do uni radio, they literally let you do whatever you wanted. So I made a program that was an improvised thing where one of the greatest highlights that I got away with was I pretended to be a child hijacking a plane going wee wee wee. Now I was recording it in this same room at 6 in the morning. Everyone else was asleep. So me going wee 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 as pretending to be a small child hijacking a plane is an interesting thing to come up with in that moment, and they allowed it on the airwaves. So it's also interesting that they let it out. They didn't question. And then I instead of singing the lyrics to "Sunshine on Leaf" by the Proclaimers, I read out the words. I pretended to play a band that only read out the lyrics.
Right. Yeah,
Only
that's
read
funny.
out the
That
lyrics. Because I
yeah.
needed to stretch it to half an hour, and I was flagging by 20 minutes. So I just had to read out the words to a song, and then I had to pretend to Google the song, and I had to come up with voice box. I was Googling a longer version or 500 miles. But it's one of those things where creativity can spawn, and do you think that that's why the format of radio will keep going, will never die out, because it feels creativity in a quicker way?
Yeah, I think, yeah, that's exactly right. You have that immediacy, that connection, and yeah, where you can have, like I said, an idea and be doing it that afternoon. And that's what, yeah, is the beauty of radio.
And so, as we draw close to this interview, we've come down the slippery slopes, and we're heading into a new millennium where no one knows what's going on or where you are or what day it is. And you don't know if you're in the past or the future. Who knows anymore? Because I don't. Uh, what upcoming projects are you excited that you're not tied down by NDAs? You're excited for people to hear or slash see?
Um, uh, there is a few that I'm tied down with NDAs, so I do not want to get sued. But there's a TV show that'll be coming out soon that I can't say what it is. There's potential of doing some live comedy shows for me, which I've wanted to do for a long time, and hopefully that's something that will happen for me next year. And yeah, that's about it at the moment, I think. But just enjoying, being a Taskmaster alumni now, and hopefully, yeah, being able to have a bit more comedy success off the back of that.
And without giving away your home address, where can people track you down online?
They can track me down on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, pretty much anything. And my handle is the same at Bree, Bree, Tomasel, Tomasel, on all those platforms.
There you go. And so we hand over the baton of your free time, and we end this glorious interview. Yes, it's coming to an end. Oh, but it is over. There'll be more interviews from me because I've got 26 YouTube channels. You'll never escape me. It's not my, well, it is my fault, but you'll never escape me. Thank you for letting me interview you.
Thank you so much, Tom, for your time and all the research that you did. I really appreciate the passion and the effort and your time. We'll see you later. We'll see you next time.
Oh,
Cue music.
thank you guys for watching. Bye-bye.
Hello everyone, please subscribe to Taskmaster World.